Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to break down a trade I took this week for a first green day bounce setup, which resulted in a 23% gain. It was a nice quick trade and it's set up beautifully, so let's go to the chart. So the ticker that I traded was MTVA for first green day bounce. So we'll start with the daily chart over here. So it's actually only been on the Nasdaq since January 26, so it's a pretty new ticker. And there's not much history to look at here. It's got no history of doing high volume, no history of bouncing. So it's definitely something to bear in mind when trading the first green day bounce. Ideally, you do want a history to see that this kind of stock can bounce. It doesn't have that. However, it still went on my watch list because it had a big day one run here where it moved from about the 111 area and it did about 85 mil in volume. And then it's had a day two move and then it's just continued its run all the way up to highs of 431. So once it's at this point, it's about almost 300% up from where it started. So that's definitely one for me to keep an eye on if there's a pullback and to see if it can potentially bounce. So I'm going to go into the intraday chart and look at why I took this trade. Just bear in mind as well, this setup really isn't in play at the moment. This is my favourite kind of setup, a first green day bounce, but it's really died away. You will get maybe like a couple a month, but it's just not hot right now. So it's a bit disappointing, but really glad that I actually managed to catch this move. And there's different ways in which this setup can occur, about 4 different ways that I would see it and trade it. And this is by far my favourite way that this can set up. So just look at the run here on the 15-minute time frame. So this is its day 1, day 2, day 3, and then this big move up as well. And then this is all the front side of the move. Then it starts its retracement. So I'm looking at this because it was one of the runners in the week, and we're now in the pullback phase, and kind of just watching it over the days really and just seeing what it does, and can kind of make out it's forming this downtrend here. So I'm watching it pre-market on the day before, the day that it bounces, and can see it's not ideal trend line because I would kind of like a bit of a longer period and maybe more touch points, but you can see here it's touched there, touched multiple times here. So for me, that's kind of in a downward trend now, and I'm looking for that to break out of that trend. That's just one thing, it's not just that alone, but I'm looking at where it's retraced to and the volume. There was a nice volume drop off from its run up to the day before it bounced, so always need that to be there. And then I'm looking at where it can pull back to. So if we look here, it's got support at the 240s, and that is previous area of resistance, broke out and then acted as support. So I'm thinking this is going to come back down to this area, edge closer and closer to the trend line, and then once that breaks, that's going to bounce. So I'm looking at this pre-market and I'm seeing that, let's go to the 1 minute time frame. So I'm thinking it's going to come down to this area. It doesn't quite do that, but it's really not far off around the 250s. So for me, it's approaching this area, this key level of support, and it's also approaching this trend line. So I'm not actually taking any pre-market here. For me, this kind of a setup, I do want to see it break trend line. Once it breaks that trend line, it's also approaching the previous day's low of day, so it's going to then reclaim that. It's then going to push past red green, so there's all these key areas that it's approaching, which I really like. So I'm looking at it pre-market, I'm thinking, look, there's nowhere really for me to get in yet because I do need the confirmation of this move. So they actually put out a PR sometime around here and it didn't do anything. So that's normally for me a sign of weakness, because if they put out a PR you would expect it to spike. So that was in my head, but for me, like, everything's intact with the chart. So I'm just basically waiting for market open Really don't want to miss this if it breaks trend. So my finger is literally on the buy button. So you can see here, breaks out of trend, and my entry is just as it reclaims the previous day's low of day, and it's also broken trend. So I got in at 283.5, I think it was, and such a tight risk. I'm risking off 280 there, which is just below the previous day's low of day. Probably could have widened it slightly, just, might chop around a bit between this trend line, but that's the risk that I took, and it obviously respected that. And then just such a quick move from buying it here. This was a 20-minute trade, just selling into these areas. My best sell was, I think, 358 maybe. And then, yeah, it was a 23% gain in the end. So really nice trade. So as I said, this break of downtrend on a first green day bounce, approaching key levels and previous day's low of day, is my favourite way for this to set up. But honestly, I've probably seen it happen about 4 times in the last year and a half, so it doesn't occur very often. The first green day bounces does, but it doesn't always set up in this way where it breaks downtrend. So when it does happen, I really want to catch the move, because it's just very likely that it's going to bounce, and I will put size on it. So happy that I caught the move. So day 2 and 3 setups are still very much the main theme at the moment, and I did take a couple of nice trades on those setups this week, but I really wanted to focus a video today on the first green day bounce setup, because the last couple of videos have been on the day 2 and day 3 moves. So I'm definitely feeling in the flow of the market at the moment. I do understand what's in play, but having said that, I do much prefer a quieter market, just because the amount of preparation, screen time and studying that I'm doing at the moment, it's extremely demanding because the market's been pretty hot. But with that, it's really accelerated my learning. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a little bit of a die down in the market, and just my usual nice, comfortable first green day bounces to come back into play. Perhaps some of these big runs on the day 2 and day 3 moves will present some nice first green day bounce opportunities. We'll see. So cheers for watching, and catch you next Sunday.